Ready? Hey, call this evening's regular meeting of council to order. Welcome everybody. In the chambers here, I have councillors Downey, Osterhoff, Renaud, Smith, and Brayton joining us. Originally, we were expecting Councillor E, but we bumped our meeting from our normal Monday night to Tuesday because a number of us were involved in the federal election yesterday, and so we were perilously close to so here we are tonight. We also have CAO and Director of Finance and the Deputy Director of Support. Please note that the council chambers have reopened to the public. Meetings will continue to be live streamed and available for public viewing on YouTube. As part of the virtual public participation, if you have any questions regarding items on the agenda, please submit them by email to mail@ektwp.ca. Questions received prior to the meeting will be addressed during the public question period, which is limited to 15 minutes. We begin this regular council meeting by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin First People. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. The first item of business is adoption of the agenda. I will have a mover and seconder. I will note there's been a small amendment. There was an attachment that was omitted from item 5.6, the year-to-date budget actuals. So the motion will be to accept the agenda. So mover and seconder, moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Brayton, that the regular meeting of council agenda dated April 29, 2025 be adopted. All those in favor? Carries. Does any member of council have a pecuniary interest with regard to any items on tonight's agenda? And so nature. Seeing none, we'll move on. I should have acknowledged we also have a member of our public works staff running this virtually as we vote for the items. So with that, we'll move on to adoption of the minutes. I'm looking for mover and seconder to adopt our minutes. Moved by Councillor Renaud, seconded by Councillor Osterhoff, that the regular meeting council minutes dated April 14th, 2025 be adopted. Any questions, corrections, or concerns with regards to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor? Carries. Thank you. Moving into staff reports, 5.1. So with regards to the Land Shell Committee, the motion is that report number A-25-29 be received, and the council approves amendments to the Land Ban Shell terms of reference. And the council directs staff to appoint all 4 applicants to the committee. I'm looking for a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Downey, seconded by Councillor Brayton. Any discussion around this item? Okay, all those in favor? Carries. On to item 5.2. This is regarding the Committee of Adjustment vacancy. The motion is that report number A-25-30 be received, and the council directs staff to post a call for applicants to fill the Committee of Adjustment vacancy immediately. Looking for a mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Osterhoff. Any discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor then? Carries. Thank you. On to item 5.3. This is with regards to the Country Club electrical cabinet repairs. For clarification, this is not an electrical cabinet that belongs to the Country Club. That's the location of this cabinet associated with our water line. And so the motion here is the council receive report A-25-31 Country Club electrical cabinet repairs quotes. And mover and seconder for the second. Moved by Councillor Renaud, seconded by Councillor Beck. Anything to add from staff? Okay, any discussion? All right, all those in favor then? Carries. Thank you. Now, this is something that may not be very familiar to the council members, but as we've been reviewing our procedure bylaw and so on, we don't necessarily always know exactly what we're doing with regards to deferred motions. So, what we're about to entertain is a motion to bring from the table the resolution that we tabled, and once we actually bring that back to the floor, then we protest the actual motion. So, basically, we both recognize what we're doing. First time since I've been sitting, I'm sure we've done that, but that's the proper way. So the motion will be that council takes from the table resolution number 145-25. Very moving and seconded by Councilor Smith, seconded by Councilor. All those in favor? Carries. Anybody opposed? Okay. All right, so that resolution, now taken from the table, was and is the council receives staff report A-25-26 of the Club Electrical Cabinet repairs, and the council approved the repairs for the Country Club Electrical Cabinet that cost of $14,290 even, exclusive of HST, and the project be funded from the water reserve. Now, we did have a mover and seconder at the time, but that ended up being a motion to table at the time, so I do need a mover and seconder this time. By Councilor Smith. Any further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor? Oh, sorry, did you have a question, Councilor? No? Okay.
And the majority said this is in class 14, we have 18. How are we going to that? A motion is something to get rid of that.
Yeah, that was an item of discussion the first time that this came up. With an extensive discussion about our concerns around that. I believe that staff is in the midst of preparing a report to come back, so we discuss after that. So,
through the chair, I think at the time there was a motion to bring back a report on the water system and the plans for it.
Ready? Any other discussion on this one? Okay, all that then, all those in favor? Carries. Thank you. Moving on into 5.5. That's with regards to storm air powers. And the motion is the council receives staff report A-25-32 from air powers, and the council provide direction to staff. Before we move on, second for that. Okay, Council Brayton, second by Council Smith. Have anything they wish to add, or are you just going to let us go through?
It's a very complicated issue, but I think that probably most of you have been reading up on it and have an awareness of what the province is proposing. There are some implications for how council operates and the mayor operates. Staff are required to do. Let's go down to council to have a conversation about what the implications are of the virtual legislature to make stronger. Okay, and for public benefit, council is a lot of this for public good necessarily. I received an announcement regarding this with all of the counties on the day that the proposal was released to the public. So no forewarning to any of the mayors who were affected by this in the region. I forwarded that note that I received from our MPT with him. So the following day, I had issued my release position on the issue. Then a few days later, the council expressed concern that apparently there had been a letter sent to all councils with some options to provide back to the province. An extensive investigation occurred because it turns out there was a letter to heads of council. I did not receive it. And in the end, our IT firm was able to confirm that the Ontario sending email system was not properly configured. And that, in concert with our own email security system, meant that that email did not even end up in my spam report. It ended up blocked with no notice. So I wasn't even aware of the existence of the letter to the heads of council. On the day that I forwarded MVP Clark's notice to council, there was a link that listed the link to the Ontario Regulatory Registry, and buried down at the bottom of that page, I'm not entirely convinced when I look at that page that particular link was there. They had been certainly by the end of the day, it was. There was a link in that provincial announcement to the registry. So that information was all available to all of us, whether any of us knew it or not, as of April 9th. There were some other municipalities in the region and beyond that held a meeting about this prior to the comment period closing, on April 16th. I will note that, this council and other councils have never felt shy about commenting on provincial issues, whether or not we're asking for. We receive notices of, motions, probably the motions all the time, other municipalities. We're to do that whether there's a period or not. So I think I've covered at least the highlights of how we got to this point and why we're considering this now versus sooner than. And so with that, I'll open the floor for discussion. Councilor.
We can not do
I believe so. I think our CAO has attended a webinar on the MCPO recently about some paragraph. No, so there are options listed for our consideration, whether or not they are of any force and effect is completely different from whether we can say that we don't have it, but that doesn't mean that we don't get it. But for our CAO,
That's through your worship. So this provincial legislation, the province has made this decision. You could all the province you can have it, if they bring legislation from there is it happens.
and other ones have heard it. If and when it happens, if the province wishes to with this, just the fact that we don't want them doesn't mean that we can ignore them. We actually have to deal with them in some way to redelegate them back to where they are right now. Something can't even be delegated, so there's a certain component of this that we're going to be forced to deal with, whether we like it or not, if that legislation comes through. I think that's what comes through.
I don't agree with the law. I know you mentioned it in your response, but I think it's unjustified. You know, basically to force this on, since it's supposed to be, councils are not supposed to be one political party or another. It's basically, why should we have to follow? We might not all be of the same mind when it comes to what Toronto wants us to do. It just takes away from how each person that votes feels, I think, about what they're contributing. And I would like to propose that we refuse, which is option number 2. And I understand that not being the Philippines, but it's a message, and I don't know how many other townships are sending the same message. But to say nothing would imply that everything's okay. So I would support option number 2.
So I ask why you support option one. The only reason I'm asking is, as I take a look at some of the meetings of the other municipalities, some are making a distinction between public province communities see or refusal, and are we going to pay a price in terms of grant applications or other repercussions, versus sending the same message but more politely and asking to be removed from the list of municipalities that are slated to receive these funds. It's a very subtle difference. I'm just wondering if you consider the one versus the other.
Well, personally, from previous years that I've been on council, seems like the archaeological studies that were forced upon the switch, and in a lot of cases, possibly out of grief and unnecessary. I think that if we got a chance to send it in the future, it can take an advance based on that type of thing. But that's just me. I'm number 2.
All right, fair enough. Any other discussion?
I did make a submission to the that meeting, and I'm not sure if the public actually understand that their powers are, but that means that to me it means, why are we here? If 3 people can make the decision, why are you electing? Just like me. And I would go with I'm not known for being all that polite, but I would go with number 1 because it is saying no, but not change on the throat, and then maybe disagree with Councilor Young, but the government can do whatever they want, and if they don't like it, it's bad. They can be very, yeah, no, you don't get it.
I don't think it is.
I don't trust them to not hold it against us if we don't. If we say it, we're going to stop and then we still get the same result. We don't need to do nothing.
Okay, anybody else? Councilor Finn? I agree with my colleague, all council, elected officials. We all have the right to vote, vote for opinion, it all matters to make it. And even though I read them all, and I looked at number 3 as well, but I said, we how long is it going to be in place? And no end date to it. So, you know, and I felt that was the democratic process, you know, the last to make decisions as well. You take us off the list, I take it off the list. You implement the model. We do implement the model, in my opinion, that if we are sending a message, doesn't mean we're not seeing fires on other issues. Looking at it. I think if we're moving off of this, it's almost like, okay, fine. We're on the back burner, if something does come up, we're asking for request for financial assistance for the grant and whatever. So either one or two, but I was looking at 2. I was looking at the 4. Okay, Councilor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. I was looking at number two, as I recall, being right, this, you were going to commit, you make a statement on the radio, or take care of it, you care for either. Well, that kind of stuff can make up the mind, too. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see a big difference between 1 and 2, but value the thoughts and the repercussions. It says number 2, we have the separate word, and you change the word refuse, so they're more polite word than refuse. Decide not to implement. Maybe decline. If we decline, you implement it. And just instead of if refuse sounds too offensive, I'm saying, can we adjust the word in the recommendation? And ask me to remove it, same message. Yes or no?
It's beyond quality. But if they refuse to do it, they don't necessarily listen to it. If you refuse it, that doesn't mean anything. They have to actually accept to refuse it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The legislation has a grip includes us, whether we like it or not. So unless they remove us from the legislation before it passes, then yes, we can certainly send them a message with the full understanding. Yes, it may not mean anything in terms of force and effect, but it's a gesture. It's a fair gesture. It may and likely won't change the fact that we may personally assume that after the pass it, even though we refuse, doesn't mean that we get to have the responsibility for what has been done or not. So this will not be the end of it. It's just the first one. So, I would agree. I think that the province would end up saying is when we want these powers, we are expected to. I think there's an expectation that municipalities really work towards our priorities. I think I'm belonging to
well, what would they, if you wanted to use them, what would they, how would they react?
So the only thing I look at, I'm gonna get back to I need council to be sensitive to the fact that the team player here, we're very sensitive to people's position, if they're aligned with content. But when all said and done, I'm the one who's going to decide on these particular legislative expectations. So even though we have reviewed them, if you simply try and force us never to deal with them, even once they come into force effect, consider what you are asking me to do, or you are asking me to break the law. Never do that. So to the extent that I'm obliged to do something with the course in terms of either redelegating them back or something like that, understand, I'm going to be obliged to deal with those, regardless of the message that they come to sense. That's the position that I'm in. Whether
Just from what Mr. Nolan said, if I was trying to tell municipalities that we can't manage our own scared property, and that we need to strong their policy so that our priorities are met, are they out to lunch? Because quite frankly, they can't mind their own house. Why are they bothering us? You seem to mind ours quite well with the 7 of us, or however many might be on a local council. By consent, by the majority rule, by discussion, but from what you said, the province is trying to tell municipalities, you can't manage your own house, you can't manage to get your own priorities in place. So we're gonna give you strong mayor power so that your mayor can get you stuff in order?
I'm going to say you can end it there, and then
Yeah.
I think Councilor Smith. No, because I think that was a rhetorical. We didn't really expect staff to have an answer, did you?
But that's what I heard.
So was there any insight provided in your AMCPO webinar?
So, we were, since the webinar, it was, folks from several municipalities where these areas have been implemented. All of them have implemented them, and all of them have made decisions around how they validate them, how they operate within that legislation. So we're making sure that they're using their powers and that constantly understands it. We shape it so that it meets what they want to be locally, what they want to operate. So none of them would say we want. And I don't think that, certainly since this is out, there have been several municipalities across the province who have taken a position of not wanting them to run in their community. But it's unclear what will happen if they get them and they don't. There's nothing in the legislation that says. I think if you don't use it, they're just saying they're going to be there. They want to make sure priorities that have housing and infrastructure are being progressed and best for communities. Not saying what we're doing. Those are their so I made it great. No matter what the council is giving here, and the government passes the legislation, you have to follow the legislation. Yes, no.
Yep. Okay. Yep. We should always follow the rules.
So we make our decision here, and we're going to opinion on 1 or 2. Okay. Basically, it's been big document, find you, whatever. But once they pass it, we have to follow. It was no different than that I was telling about the archaeological study assessment, where we had many meetings, and then other municipalities had meetings about it, and we said, we don't want that one town, but it's one town, right? So here we are, making a decision. You know, I heard you say, whatever decision we make, then I'll fall back on you. Bottom line is, we still have to follow the problem.
Yes, and that was my whole point, you know. I've always been supportive, whatever the consensus of, it doesn't matter whether that's the way that I go on. I think I always represent whatever comes inside. So I would respect if you say that, you know, for the council, if we want to refuse this, so that's fine. Just didn't want there to be any confusion from neighbors, so whenever we start to pass it, please understand, not that I'm going against the consensus of the council, but number one priority has to be following the rule of law, especially since it affects me, it doesn't affect all the council. These are not strong council powers that are being conveyed to us you know, against our will. These are strong mayor powers that are conveyed to me against council will. So if and when that comes into effect, I'm not sure my responsibility to then take the steps necessary to delegate back what I can and so on, but some of them cannot be delegated away, whether I like them or not. If there are two or three that are identified, they're going to have. Here. So understand. And that's not mine. That's what I was
When you, if the problem goes ahead. But not what we do. So if they're not out, that the council still can outvote them at the.
Yeah, on certain issues, there are vetoes, there's an overturning of veto. That essentially raises the bar. So right now, things can pass with a simple vote. And so through that mechanism, ultimately, if I veto something, the council wants to overturn that. There are only certain things before that. Council wants to overturn that, then it requires, I believe, 2/3 of council to vote to overturn. So if we get away from the unpleasant way in which this is being rolled out, stop and think about just the logical flow. Some may argue that's strengthening democracy because now isn't it better to have a 2/3 position to make a position clear rather than a razor thin large flow. And so is this the best way to go about forcing that issue? That's the real debate. But there are checks and balances. It's cumbersome.
Oh, let me check my roots.
Oh, but maybe we're on a different mic.
Or did that mess up something? Boyle, can you hear us?
No, I'm sorry.
Are you confused, but it's not?
So it's part of the, yeah, so because the mic wasn't plugged in. The
Is
system
it better now
used
that
a
it's
different
plugged
mic.
in?
Hello, Royal.
Oh.
Much better.
Okay, great.
Oh, now we're here.
All right,
Sorry.
so, okay,
Our apologies.
We have to start the whole conversation.
all right, so for those who have been trying desperately to follow along, my apologies for the technical issue. Apparently we had a mic unplugged here in the room, a different mic ended up picking us up, but very poorly. So you're joining us in mid-conversation regarding a very serious discussion around these strong mayor powers that the provinces is about to force on us. The consensus is already developed, that nobody around the horseshoe here is happy about that. We're trying to figure out the real logistics of we already have an appetite to send a clear message back to the province, you know, either to refuse or at least ask to be taken off the list of those receiving them. But we're at a point where we're trying to understand the specifics of if that gesture goes unacted upon by the province and we end up in this township with strong mayor because what does that look like? How is it actually going to be dealt with on a day-to-day basis? So that's where we're at in the conversation. That's a gross oversimplification, but at least it gets you part. Okay, so we don't have anybody on the further council.
Well, just, you, work with people, so, when you provide some clarity on number 3, where it states that the special legislation, you know, that's the direct staff to back recommendation to ensure that authority For you, worship, so this is really what has happened in some of the larger municipalities that have got some of this going on. There's several of those powers which the mayor can by direction, sorry, by decision, sign those either back to council or to staff. And so they're basically abdicating the power to do that and putting it back in the hands of the authority that's typically the power, whether it's staff hiring or council making committees. Some of those authorities, they can put back into your hands. There are some people, and the budget is so under under the strong mayor legislation, the mayor is the one responsible for bringing the budget forward. The mayor doesn't bring the budget forward by February 1st. That reverts to council. So it then becomes council. Now, what is typically happening in some of these large municipalities is the mayor is giving direction to staff to create the budget. So staff are still working. The mayor is then the one that is actually presenting that to the rest of the council. So I guess the answer is most of the large municipalities found ways to sort of work with this. One of the key things to understand there is that the mayor still has that power, and if they choose at some point to take some of those powers back, they have the authority to do it. Okay, that's what
You're saying that the ones that have it now, they've had it for that. I figured out a way to work on it. Blows my mind, and why would you have a legislation that you're just trying to work around? And have any of them said any benefits that they've gotten?
Just before you answer it, clarify something. I think it's a mischaracterization to say we're here by the way to work.
Or work within it?
They figured out a way to work their way through it. They got it. Okay, so not necessarily re-originated or taking full advantage of the problems intended. But there are certain constraints, and so they figured out how to deal with it. So that's a fair way to think of it. But at that point, that's where it was.
So most of them have really this legislation about housing. So despite the fact that it's still behind on some of the targets that they set. In these municipalities, they are using this as a way to speed up the planning process, to speed up the process to have housing developed. And so we can expect here, council are generally supportive of the housing projects where we take them. So yes, they are using them. They're finding ways to work within it, and ways to make sure that they're still compliant with the legislation. And really some of the authority back. So making sure they're working with some way to get this.
But not a whole lot. Are they getting tens of thousands of houses built because somebody gave them standard house? I don't see that happening here.
Councilor Brayton?
I think when you're talking about other municipalities, you're talking about other municipalities for hundreds of millions of dollars. And we're just a little community. And if we don't even compare to these other Ottawa, Toronto, London, Sarnia, North Bay, I don't. They seem to have us in the same category as the big boys, and we're not the big boys. And I think that's our problem with a lot of them.
Councilor Gunn?
Along those lines, like for example, the archaeological study, basically that was a process that needs to be fixed by legislation. A lot of the problems that stop development, especially in our township, are things like that, which originated in Toronto and have been downloaded on us. They want to you know, why don't they fix the problems that they created instead of trying to kind of hit it the wrong way? Because there's nobody around this table that doesn't want to develop things within the township. You know, so I still think we refuse, and then we could go to a number 3 if they make us do it.
So with your indulgence, I would like to share, because I submitted personal comments. I identified myself as from people scheduled to inherit strong mayor powers, but I really clear strongly through mine. I'm not trying to represent council. I first let the discussion go where it's going to go organically to see if some other significant points were brought up. There are some things I'm sure when we hear this, you're going to say, oh, yeah, no, that's that implication too. So with your indulgence, I want to share with you what I submitted. This will become part of the public record. I said, as a mayor who is about to be assigned strong mayor powers, I wish to register my opposition to the way in which this particular policy change is being advanced. I also wish to express my extreme displeasure with the outrageously short commenting period for this proposal. 7 days for something with such sweeping scope is completely unreasonable. It's a patronizing token gesture against. My objections are based on a number of factors. As far as I can tell, there was no prior consultation, certainly not with me. I've spoken to several mayors in my region, and all of them who will be affected by this were caught flat-footed and no fault of their own. Many times when the province is making an important announcement, we will receive a courtesy notice in advance as trusted partners in the whole process. But this time the announcement was first made public, and then we were informed of it after the fact, completely blindsided us. As a result, some of us are now facing accusations and questions for which we have few, if any, satisfactory answers. As I recall, the concept of strong mayor powers were originally tied to certain assigned housing targets and a willingness to accept the challenge of those targets. Officially accepting those targets would also unlock access to significant resources through the Building Faster Fund to help municipalities cope with corresponding infrastructure demands. Yet in this iteration of the rollout, there's a deafening silence on the matter of corresponding funding, targets, etc. Just a simple and clearly stated expectation that mayors will use these unrequested powers and in many cases unwelcome to advance provincial priorities. From day one, I've readily acknowledged that we're in a housing crisis, and I've applauded the provincial government's goal of addressing that crisis with bold solutions, even when I didn't always have confidence that some of those proposed solutions would actually yield the intended results. We're in favor of getting houses built, and so is our council. But I've grown very weary and frankly now resentful for the provincial government for perpetuating the fake and false narrative that municipalities are the reason housing is not getting built. Nothing could be further from the truth, at least in our region. The arduous province-wide planning process is the core issue, not obstinate council. Fortunately, strong mayor powers cannot override these burdensome, lengthy, and costly planning processes. If the expanded powers can indeed override these provincially legislated impediments, we might look upon them differently. But as it is, you are merely setting up mayors to be scapegoats, something we do not deserve. And this is being done midterm, which is incredibly disrespectful to the municipal electorate. Voters did not cast their ballots for mayors and councillors in this context. Their decisions were based on a very different framework. Adding incredible insult to injury in all of this is a local and very real case study in our own municipality with a level of irony beyond belief. Against this backdrop of the province claiming that municipalities are the problem and that we need to be more nimble, there is an exciting multi-million-dollar project which would increase the number of doors in our municipality by nearly 20%. That's not an exaggeration. Our council has long ago indicated its support for it, and yet, despite repeated efforts on our part, we cannot get the province to help us advance. 14 months ago, we submitted a community infrastructure housing accelerator application to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Planning, and to date, we still do not have an answer from the minister. From time to time, staff level meetings have occurred, but never any actual forward movement from the minister. I think it's now safe to say the word accelerator was a gross misnomer. Of course, we all know legislation changed in the ensuing months, and the CHIA tool was ultimately eliminated. So we moved over to an NZO process. That transition introduced its own set of bureaucratic delays, which might have been more palatable had it actually gone through. But the reality is, we are apparently no further ahead today than we were 14 months ago. To bring this case sharply into focus, I'm about to receive strong mayor comments, whether I want them or not, supposedly so I can help the province advance its housing priorities. But for 14 months, the province seems unable to get out of its own way and help me advance its own priorities. Sad part is, it's the same priority for us too. Surely I cannot be the only one who feels there's something there. And I ended with a note that says, I submit these comments solely as my own, not necessarily on behalf of the municipality. Council has not officially discussed this matter or reached an official position. However, some councils have indicated an intention to submit their personal comment. So there's a big question about funding. Like, where did that all go? Okay, that's how this was all introduced, but there isn't any of that being spoken about here. Or Director of Finance?
Also, like, out that we applied for the use of every vote and we're
Yeah, now that's a separate
One-
industry and so on.
in a, with a partnership on one on our own. And it would be fine.
So the reason that I took the time to share that is, given that this is coming at us anyway, and we're figuring out how to deal with it. I do want council to consider one thing. If there was something I could do tomorrow, if there was something I could do on the first day that I inherit these powers, whether we want to have them, that would quickly advance Ralph's corners, then do we want to throw the baby out with the bathwater? So if we simply refuse, or we do everything that we can to push back and say, we'll never use the common area powers and so on. There may be some intelligence to say, look, we understand we're still going to work by consensus. That's already an established consensus for all of us. Then that's an issue, and I refer to that in my media release. If there was something I could do to help accelerate the consensus that's already been established, then I don't have a problem using the powers. But that's the only circumstance under which I would. I just want council to think carefully about what we do, how we do it, and how we say it to the province. Because, as I said, I hate to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't know if there are any other comments, but I do have something that I can tell you. We're really concerned about these powers. We have a way that we can, not necessarily yes, but looking forward, we can fix this so that the municipality only needs to deal with it for a short time and then never again. So if this council feels strongly that they don't want the municipality to have these powers, but if so, obviously. For the balance of this term, and then they would be gone. If we could do it sooner, I'd do it, but for legislation, there's no way to do it. But we can fix it, starting with the next one, the council and beyond, so the problems can't touch us.
The only one part of my point when I made that comment, my comment is, you know, what the time period, I mean, the taxes, you know, you did, now any current one forever or.
The way it's written, it is legislation, much like the legislation that affects archaeology, as an example. So it goes into place and then it stays in place until the same government decides to change it, repeal it. If it's a change of government, and that government repeals whatever, it's here, and it's open. There's the arrow.
They could decide to change the legislation in the future. All of this.
Yeah. So, yes. As we know it today, I guess.
That's legislation.
So go ahead.
Well, I'd just like to say that I don't trust her on
Okay.
legislature, and I'm not afraid to. I don't think it would affect us one little bit because of all the refusals we've already had. I think we're on our own when it comes to housing, and that's what it's going to be. The development, big ticket grants to help develop housing, we're going to get money. So I say send a message and what repercussions could there be in saying it forces to do it, we do it.
So if you feel strong, if you want to get rid of these moving forward, then somebody needs to at some point put a motion forward to strengthen council to 5 instead of 7, because that was the threshold. This only applies to councils with 6 or more. Because when you work out the 1/3 issue, I believe the province was concerned that mayor and one other ally in a council of 5 or less to basically run the township. So as an example, Edwardsburg Cardinal only has a council of 5 members. they do not receive these powers under the select report. Other municipalities, the total of, 5 council members in total, do not inherit these powers. So, and to the extent that their mayors are not obliged to do anything, but not redelegate, they can't suddenly call back the powers that they said they were going to get back. So it's just in the current legislation. So we don't need to deal with that tonight, but there's a solution. We feel strongly that if you don't want this township to deal with strong mayor powers, we just need to put it down to a council of 5 and it's simple. So we'll find more and more. That's what, instead of 7. All right, so for tonight, we need to reach a consensus on 1, 2, 3. So I heard sort of an equal number of some concerns. Angel is 1, some concerns of Angel is 2. So are we satisfied to at least narrow it down if we're choosing between 1 or 2? Or do we want to go with it? And I'm going to suggest that we indicate that if we go with number 2, we indicate for the tonight. Yeah. Well, so is that what Council Smith? We want number 2 to call you, number 5 or 15. Okay, Council satisfied with that? Okay. All right, so with that, sorry, did you have something else? Okay. All right, so I'm going to call a question now. We'll give a direction of the staff that are to the wording for all those in favor. Carries. I think we had a mover and seconder to put the report on the table and to provide direction. So, Madam Deputy, we already have a mover and seconder. Okay. All right, so that's right. Sorry, what was that?
I'm trying to do your.
Okay, fair enough. You want to be the stronger. Okay, fair enough. All right. Moving on to item 5.6. This is a year-to-date budget update. The motion is that report F-25-27 be received for information. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councilor Ross, second by Councilor. And I will note this was the item where there was a last minute addition of 1 department that was left off the agenda. Excuse me. Does that have anything to do with at this point?
The council, no, I've made the items that I think, that we should monitor and constantly be aware of, but everything looks pretty okay right now.
And I think for the council's benefit, there are some members here that look at them, like for only for the way through the year, we just about spend everything. But, those are items that only happen throughout the year. And so it shouldn't jump out as much as maybe a little bit. So with that, Mr. Smith, that's the unless I'm not, all of it. Well, then, all the stuff okay, I think it's level. We don't care if they, and I don't expect the number of calls, really, friend, I don't think, all the stuff really is important.
Not happy with this is at the end of the month. So we have experienced in the last few weeks some significant public declaration communication that was set on the next report. It is but they're not monitored.
Yeah. And I think one of those at least will not require an emergency road. Yeah.
I mean, no crystal ball.
What's the call failure? Right.
Well, the one that we closed the road for is the voting, the voter failed completely.
Rushing through different box. I'm sure I imagine. Yeah, but we do have Mr. Becker, maybe some details if you wish. Mr. Becker, if you're within earshot, if you have a little bit of insight to provide on some of these culvert failures, that would be great.
I can try. We've had several large diameter culverts in the range of the 900 millimeter or 3 foot culverts had to be replaced. They're rather expensive. They were about $2,500 a piece. We've had several small culverts. There's one on Chant Road. I'm trying to think, there was what, a few 500 and 600 diameter culverts as well, which we are typically have around in stock. But unfortunately, the bottoms are rotting out. A lot of the times the guys have been driving around and they find a sinkhole, and then they uncover it a little bit and find there's a big hole in it, and they patch it with a sign or something, but we have to change the pipe.
I suggest you stick around for a moment just in case there are more questions. Anything else for discussion?
Well, what's the average age of those culverts?
Well, that's a good guess. To my knowledge, we haven't done an actual assessment since the original upload from the asset management. I don't think there's been an assessment done completed. So a lot of them are ranging in the 25 to 30 year range.
And what's typical life expectancy then? I'm guessing obviously not 25 or 30 years. But...
If you read the literature, they say that you should be able to get 30 years useful life, but it depends on the composition of the soil and the surrounding area feeding into it. Like typically in the agricultural sector, there's higher nitrates, which tend to break down the galvanizing on the culvert. So they do, yeah. We have found some more that we think are going to be candidates for next year for sure. We've been actively looking closer now, but again, we need to get into a regular program every September, going around looking at rating the culverts, so we have a better idea of where we stand.
Maybe it's not pertinent, but so are we going to maybe next year find out how many culverts we own? Like, we own them?
We have the number of how many we own. Just the condition rating that was originally done hasn't been followed through since. So that we're kind of got to get back on track with that.
When someone builds a house or farm field access and there's a culvert going in there, who owns that culvert? House or ag? Is it private or is it township still?
So the idea behind the entrance permit is they pay to have the culvert put in place, and then we take ownership of it because it's on our right of way. It's on our land. And then we grant them access across it. So in a perfect world, they pay $100 for the entrance permit. They pay to install it, but then perpetually they get a new culvert when it's needed.
Councilor Downey, and I'll take them.
I'm going to go to, I have a few questions, but the one that I'm wondering about is in Addison, the old service station where we're going into a phase 2, which is the point of how much 24,000, which you're taking from the tax sales. What's the implications of? Do we know what the implications of this kind of thing? Somewhere I seen where they told the township that the tanks were gone. Are we on the hook right to the very end, because we don't actually own this land? We inherited it, and so if we inherit a piece of property that has some, they find some issues down there, and plus the removal of these tanks, how many thousands of dollars could we be on the hook for by opening up this given areas?
So we do actually own it somewhat by choice, because council made a decision after failed attempts at tax sales or all right, this problem itself. And whether we like it or not, because we have deep pockets, if something does happen as a result of an issue going and detecting, that migrates to Jamaica, we would end up named the liability of the anyway. So at the time, the council said, let's take the opportunity before the time period expires to vest our interest in the property, whatever's from the owners of that property. And so now we are on the march to make that property saleable so that we can get productive property. So that's the journey before.
Just to add to that, I think it's not even that we want to make it saleable because it, when we get the results of these in phase two, we will know what it would cost. And then the township can make the decision to sell it as is to somebody that's willing to develop it and fix it. And there are drawing bids and stuff if somebody else purchases to do something with it. We don't have to be the one, but having the information and having done the DD, we can put it up for sale with that information, full disclosure. This is what it is. This is what we're selling it for. Does anybody want to buy it?
I'm just wondering if anybody knows any particular costs of what they're saying. We need this property because it's probably only worth $30,000, even if it is that stuff.
And I guess this will tell us, are there even tanks that are that need taken, or is in fact the information that we originally got that they were taken? Correct. So this is going to help us reach at least a point of certainty.
Hey, under subscriptions, we had 3,000 allowed in 24, in 23, in 24 we got 70,000, and then in 25 we already got 80,000. And if you don't have the answer, you don't worry. Just ask me. 121, 103, 2350.
So. This is all of the municipal subscriptions. It would include any staff, subscriptions to the MCO, to the Municipal Finance Association, the AMO, to all sorts of different subscriptions. As the staff becomes gets their certification, then we pay for the members. So, and generally those subscriptions come out at the beginning of the year. So this really,
you know, there's a write down for 60,691 about that. I'm not sure what bad debt is when you're not a business.
requirement for audit. And what it is taxes receivable that we're not going to do. So what happened last year is we arrested a bunch of properties, the aforementioned one we included, when all the taxes were written off, we could reduce the allowance for doubtful accounts. And in order to do that, we reduced the benefit.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, one more question. One thing I kept noticing, and it may not apply to the whole bottom line, but it seemed like the insurance for what we budgeted for what is going to be actual is up pretty well on every single building. All right.
And it may just be that I used percentage that said that it was going to go up with all the budget, and then the actual invoice went in and it was slightly off what they said, or the allocations are a little off. So I can look and see if there's minuses which are put off on labor.
Yeah, well, that's what we can do. Okay.
I will get back to you. I need to take a look at it.
Ready? Anything else on the financial update? Councilor Brady?
Yeah, but I asked for a while ago, these things, trying to help along a normal, average rate, eventually, and all that was in it.
Yeah, so Mr. Nick, do we have limits on the length of a call that we will provide to somebody, or is there a typical typical size that people require when they come in to their property?
It depends on the entrance. The basic standard for in the bylaw is 8 meters, but it depends on what the actual entrance is for. We reviewed one recently that was a commercial entrance and it required 45 meters of pipe just for the turning radius for the vehicles entering the site. But it's kind of case specific, but the entrance permit bylaw references a minimum of 8 meters, 26 feet.
Full diameter of that.
Oh, 300.
Does that answer your question?
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I will call for any questions on the financial update. Okay, some good questions. I'm gonna go ahead and call the question on receiving that then. All those in favor? Carries, thank you. Thanks for your help, Mr. Metcalf, Director of Finance.
I just. Also, for enjoying this report. Would you be okay with quarterly report? Rather than monthly, it's still out of work. And, I think quarterly, the council, the details that they need, that's.
I see a lot of that, and quite frankly, but the order allows staff the opportunity, if they see something wrong, they may be able to mitigate it to the whole time of the season. Look at the little bit, it's already smoothed out, it's not wrong.
Sometimes we call it, people do, call it.
Okay, very good. Good. Moving on to 5.7, where the pulverizing tenders. The motion is that the report PW 25-09 pulverizing tender results be received. And the committee of the whole recommend the council award tender PW 2025-03 pulverizing for Miller Group. And the council directs staff to complete scope definition with the successful contractor to complete the work approved in the 2025 budget. And the council authorized the mayor and clerk to execute a contract for the provisions of RFT PW 2025-03 pulverizing with Miller Group for the tender prices plus the township portion of the HST as presented in the report PW 25-09. Looking for a move and second to that. Right? And
Sorry,
Debbie?
I just, I'm gonna go through that. I'm just gonna go through the-
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, so consider that a friendly amendment. All right, so that just reads, and the council award. All right, thank you for that catch. All right, so move and second for that, please. Moved by Councilor Smith, second by Councilor Renault. Okay, any discussion on this item? We can refer questions to Mr. Metcalf if necessary.
I know I'm good. I'm ready for any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councilor Renault, go ahead.
So Keeling Road is that only for the whole job on the road, is that gonna be done this year?
Mr. Metcalf?
Sorry, could you just speak up a little bit? Sorry, I apologize. I hadn't heard it here yet.
The Keeling Road, is that the total cost for it, and because it was done this year, so that stretch will be all pulverized and finished this year?
No, it's a two-year project. So this year we're just going to pulverize it, do the base repairs, and then replace the culverts and do some ditching. So that's half the cost. So then in 26 we'll complete the top layer granular and then pave it or put the hard surface on.
And that's the same for line 3 then, half this year, the pulverizing this year and the rest of the next.
Kitley line 3, yeah.
Anything else? Councilor Downey?
Is Healy Road, shared road with Rio Lakes?
Healy Road is, yes.
So, is Rio Lakes doing anything on Healy Road?
They're going to pay half the bill. We're doing the work. It's similar with the Town Line Road Bridge project. It's a shared road and that's in their section of the road. So we're just going to pay for the portion of the work and they're going to administer the contracts for us.
Yeah, so that's on town, and it's the reverse for us. We're taking the lead on this project, they're ready.
Okay.
Anything else? Right, Derek,
So that cost, is that our cost or the total cost?
Mr. Metcalf, I believe that's just our cost.
Yeah, the 75, 72, 73, 65 is our cost. So you double that.
Right, call the question then, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, carried, thank you. Alrighty, thank you very much. Mr. Martel. So, so we are now into committee reports. Excuse me, there's one set to receive. The motion is the following draft committee minutes be received. Planning Advisory Committee, draft minutes dated April 17th, 2025. Move and second for receiving those, please. Moved by Councilor Brayton, second by Councilor. Discussion around the minutes. We do have some. Okay, all those in favor of receiving the minutes? Everybody, carries. We have attack, we have the following, 7B-19-25 at 17th Street Road, concession 1, park lot 23, geographic Kitley, owner of Chapman, and deal with the minutes on pages 1 and 4, we approved. Approve and second for that, please. Moved by Councilor Smith, second by Councilor Smith. Any discussion on this item? Okay, all those in favor? Carries. Second, final one coming out of the back. The severances B-20-25 and B-21-25. Vacant lots at Kitley, South Elm States Town Line Road, in section 2. Park lots 25 and 26 in geographic Kitley. Owner of Chapman, and detailed in the minutes on pages 4 through 6. We approved. We're second, please. Moved by Councilor Osborne, second by Councilor. Discussion on this one. Okay, all in favor? Carries, thank you. This brings us to our bylaws. We have first and second reading of a couple of them. Motion is the remover be granted leave to introduce bylaw number 2025, being a bylaw to authorize transfer payment, and bylaw 25-26 being a bylaw to establish a lien bank shall ad hoc committee. This shall constitute the first and second reading thereof. Remover and seconder, please. Moved by Councilor Baker, seconded by Councilor. All those in favor? Carries. Third reading of those same two, but before I do that, remember which needs to be voted on separately. Okay, and so the motion will be that bylaw number 25-25, 25-26, be given third reading and the forms passed, signed, and numbered accordingly. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councilor Rowe, seconded by Councilor Brady. All those in favor? Carries. Moving into correspondence, we have a number of those. The motion is the correspondence items 1, 3, 4, and 5 be received and filed. The correspondence item 2 be received and supported. And the correspondence item 6 be received and referred to staff. So we'll move and second for that. Councilor Osterhoff. All right, so we'll get through these in linear fashion. First one, a letter from the Administrative Agriculture for their business.
It just means that everybody else is
Well, that it's coming at the very end of the process.
No, the fact that the problem is allowing a large dollar, some of the finance, like Wilmot Township, Elmer, St. Thomas area. Absolutely fantastic finance. To be put into debt, think over, whatever, and they want us to save land here that we've had to, that we probably have to bring land into to make it grade 1 land for stop. Oh, seriously, this is ridiculous. They're telling us to do something, and they're totally not paying any attention to it, and allowing it to happen never. Lord, you're welcome.
Right? Anybody else on this item? Okay, so we'll receive and file that, so I think we can probably work on it.
We can't send them a letter and tell them that they're being a little bit critical.
If you wish, but we're already sending them some negative news. Just suggesting that we pace ourselves. So 8.2, this is an item where it's being suggested that we receive support. Motion to support
road is benefiting from their power bill, like a lot of that here, nature of their municipal government. And making the road in the electric, council, yeah, I think all the problems are so. I'll have to admit.
Right?
Yeah.
Item three, a little closer to home, this is an announcement regarding seeking additional spaces. Not everybody necessarily happy with the way it works. It can be dispersed at the moment, but discussion for only a bunch of prescribed formulas that counties have to justify for the spaces. We do our best to work within those constraints and still work with everything. Seems it always seems to change.
You're correct, like, when I read it, it's easy, I've been found very case to go and think, I'm missing your eyes, but I'm saying myself, we're not a workforce, they rock, to the municipality, and when you think that that's taking the file there, things are, not file. I don't care how much traffic, I'll care what they have about that.
Well, okay, so since you opened that discussion, it's a good question. Parents within reason will drive wherever they have to get the service they need. So we need to be cognizant of locating the service as sensitively for their needs as we can. Some of the significant needs kind of work those for the first time of their home may in fact need childcare. So it's part of a staff contraction to be able to have localized service there as well. North Grenville would probably take exception to the parent organization. That's the workforce flow. North Grenville is just because of that growth to get some put there. Yes, yeah, right.
On my road,
Yes.
Those are really following the workforce. That's what they're doing. What I'm saying that there's already a pricing looking for childcare present.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very lot of stories there.
And part of the problem is not to turn this into a county meeting, but people are curious about these things. Very similarly to long-term care homes, where the individual have every right to put their name on a waiting list for multiple long-term care homes. Luckily, that list is managed a little bit more centrally than the child care, but the child care you put on multiple lists, and so it makes it look like the depth of the waiting lists. If you just add all those numbers from, say, the 10 child care we've got thousands of people waiting for child care spaces. In actual fact, you may have 300 times 6 different lists, and so 1,800 is really only 300 families looking for child products. So kind of looking for. So there is a move to try and get to a centralized list. So we have real line of sight into the scope of the problem. And right now, it's based on currently available data. So most generally going at an incredible rate, but right now the ratio of servicing in child care spaces is well within the provided guidelines. So the counties have difficulty justifying putting more child care spaces there, and yet we know we'll be short-sighted to not do that, because within a year that ratio is going to change. Within 2 years, it's going to change a lot more. So these are the things that we're trying to work with the problems and get it dispersed as best we can. It's like a lot of other things. Sometimes we're a little bit amped up with that.
I understand the appeal to the retirement home for having daycare there for the staff. Why are we not referring to what? Are they not referring to more business or a hospital public station? Have daycare there. 40 employees in 4 counties, resources for them. It makes sense.
There's a bit of red tape, especially with what they call the CDL, the Canadian law, this $10 a day healthcare. There's all kinds of constraints associated with that in terms of who would and wouldn't qualify as a provider. So as an existing industry, just providing a localized service for their employees only, that doesn't necessarily qualify versus a public provider with room to run that. That's going up there. So,
It could be someone has to look at the other, providing it for garbage, but
it's free up. Yeah.
Bring them up to now.
All good points. I guess the bottom line is we're doing our best. Ready? So, 8.4, is with regards to a survey that, Amo has launched. There was a bit of the information in the communication, and they seem to indicate that, we sent to the council, and the council is welcome to participate, but it's all numbers stuff with. From the finances, that we don't know our meeting, so. That's more than I don't know. Okay, 8.5, this is our even building statement. So, statements. Okay. Councilor O'Connor.
Immediately ago, I did ask for a possibility of an overview report. And, I'd like to, I'm satisfied with that.
That's why it's on there. It's the last one.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate the number of visits and charges and stuff like that. With my friends and stuff. I think. Thank you.
I was gonna ask if you could send me a thank you letter for the report. But this is the first time, other than when Jerome used to give it to us verbally. This is, I haven't seen it, this broke out before.
Great. 8.6, this is a speed reduction request. We're going to be referring to staff. I suggest we save our discussion until our information.
I just want to sympathize with those people. I think I'm hearing a lot about speeding these days, and I see it, and I don't see speed traps other than on Highway 29. But I would like to see a little more of our police force out there enforcing, because it's nothing to see somebody do 120 or 50 from misdirections.
Yeah, I got thanks from a member of the for anybody that picked on suggested that all this rightly or wrongly, we don't have a control, or sorry, we don't have a misdirection. We by default get our policing from the they are requesting that if somebody has issues, the plans need to go directly to the because then they are in control of their resources and their deployment. So it's not that I don't want to hear from residents, that's fine. But you have to tell them the police directly. Otherwise, it's difficult for us to direct the police to do something. We can pass that information on, but it doesn't always translate into them knowing exactly where you have to be willing to deploy those resources. So we need people to work with us next time.
I've had feedback on that as well. It wasn't too promising what they were told by the OPP about, things like, well, we don't have time.
Yep.
And that's like, seems like the number one excuse.
The other, I hate to call it excuse, but the other consideration is, depending on whether it's our road or county road, there's some responsibility on the authority of the road, make sure that our signage is enforced. Otherwise, the police essentially are not equipped in place at the time. If the sign becomes a technicality where it gets traffic court and starting to defend themselves by saying, at least there wasn't a sign for 2 kilometers. You only get a speed it gets cost. So there's multiple field. That's right. There's multiple things we need to catch up to with everything. People need to understand that maybe frustrating, but they need to call in. They call us. All we can do is be a simple thing. I hate to say that, but I'm not going to spin it more than it isn't true. That's where I work.
So, this is, do you know if there is a call on system on the OPP website? Because on the website, there's this family life, that there was a specific spot on the OPP website to do that, and what the OPP had said is the more that you get people doing that, then they can determine where the problem areas are and set resources based on that.
Well, that's good information.
But I'm not sure, and I'm not sure if it is area, like I said, in Bedwana, would have been under a different, board.
Right.
I'm not sure if it was the board or the actual OPC site, but it's something maybe that, they can provide that information to you.
Yep, very interesting. All right, that brings us to the end of our correspondence, so there's no further discussion. Call the question on processing it as per the motion. All those in favor? Carries, thank you. So this is the motion that would support 8.2. Madam Deputy, this is basically a Xerox of that motion, or I don't mind reading it if I have to, but.
No, it's a cut and paste with updates to move it to.
Okay, given that it was included in our agenda package available to the public, does council want me to read this out, or are you satisfied with the process, the motion to support the same way as the kind of available motion opposition was? Okay, so I'm looking for a move and second again for that motions. Okay, all those in favor of that? That carries. Good.
Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Yes, yeah, Councilor. Okay, that takes us to information items. Any member have an information item to share with us this evening? Okay, seeing anything, any member have a notice of motion? Okay, I think I have two notices. I actually prepared these. Whereas trust in public institutions such as a municipality and its council is paramount for functional and healthy democracy. And whereas transparency and accountability are crucial elements in establishing trust. And whereas every member of council should be proud of and committed to every stance they take on every issue they consider. And whereas at least one other municipality in the region known to have successfully incorporated recorded votes into the standard way of doing business for every item considered by the council. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the Township of Elizabethtown-Kitley direct staff to bring back the report for council's consideration, amending the township procedural bylaw to include a routine recorded vote mechanism for all matters requiring a vote. So there's one notice. And the second one is as follows. Similar or simple. Whereas the provincial government recently announced its intention to implement strong mayor powers for several municipalities across the province, including the Township of Elizabethtown-Kitley. Whereas a member of council raised concerns via email about potential failure to provide information to council about this topic in a timely manner, a lost opportunity for council to provide feedback to the provincial government. Whereas trust in public institutions is, such as municipality and its council, is paramount for functional and healthy democracy. Whereas transparency and accountability are crucial elements in establishing trust. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the Township of Elizabethtown-Kitley instruct staff to publish the correspondence item on the council next agenda. The entire council email thread regarding strong mayor powers, which began on April 9th, 2025, approximately 11:16 a.m. and concluded on April 16th, 2025 at approximately 8:06 a.m. And the council also instructs staff to publish the correspondence item on the council's next agenda. Corresponding sections of on-serve support ticket number 376520 related to a detailed investigation of technical issues involving the provincial government's email sending system and the township's email security system. There will be notices that we'll deal with. So that brings us to public question period. Deputy, do you see any questions? Okay, we don't have any members of the public in the gallery, so that brings us to a closed meeting. The motion is that the regular meeting of council adjourned at 8:24 p.m. for a closed meeting regarding one matter under section 239 subsection 2C of the municipal act, the proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality, specifically regarding 50 line 9. One matter under section 239 subsection 2B of the municipal act regarding personal personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically 2025 Ontario Senior Year. Finally, one matter under section 239, subsection 2I of the Municipal Act, which are the secret for scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which, if disclosed, would reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization, specifically Rouse Corners, global outfit. So I'm looking for a mover and seconder to suspend and limit the vote. Moved by Councilor Smith, seconded by Councilor Brown. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. We'll take a moment to end our live stream. Don't see any business. It's just a confirmatory bylaw reporting out. And so we'll permanently end the live stream and we will report out into the minutes and reflect that. Everybody? Yes. Yeah. Anybody needs a bio break? You want to go?